travel isn't just about destinations, it's about the people you meet, the cultures you immerse yourself in, the stories you carry home. I'm Tshidi Madia, and on my travel feature, I take you on a journey beyond the guidebook. Each week, I connect with fellow travelers, insiders, and storytellers to bring you the heart of every place, whether it's a hidden gem right here in South Africa or a dream destination abroad. Join me as we travel through conversations, memories, and inspiration. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
702.
Let's walk the talk on 92.7
and 106 FM.
I'm personally tired of also speaking about Minister Nobuhle Ngabane. The Higher Education Minister is exhausting me, if I'm being brutally honest, because she goes from one scandal to the next. And with really basic things, right, where you're expected to be just honest about what's happened, it's shrouded in so much. It's gum 1 minute, it is the inability to be actually held accountable the other. And then finally, we have what's happened this week. So the High Portfolio Committee has finally received the names. Remember, they've been wanting names from the minister of the panel that will oversee the selection of sector education and training authorities. These are the SETA Board Chairpersons. So she had been refusing for a really long time to give names. She clashed with the minister, with the MPs, which is why I'm saying we've seen these tough portfolio committee engagements, and she's been accused of being dismissive. I've been saying she fails to account to us, the Republic. It's not about the parliamentarians. It's not about those parties that are there. It's about speaking to South Africa's parliament and by extension to South Africans. So she had failed to do that, but she's now submitted a name. You've got the chairperson of the committee, Tabokolitsi, saying that they welcome the submission of the names. Those names, though, it's got 5 panels, 5 names on the panel. You've got Advocate Mutau, which is an interesting one. He's appointed chairperson, but he did not attend any of the meetings, they say. You also have Asisi Paul Solani, Nelisiwe Semani, Mabuza Ngubani, and Rulani Ngwenya. All these names have issues. Some of them come from her department, and now you need to remember that there were representatives from her department who knew nothing about the independent panel. Yet here you're hearing and you're seeing, based on what she submitted, people that come from her department. So as a result of the submission, the DA has said, unacceptable, that something is off here, that she's misleading Parliament. So they've now taken her to the Ethics Committee. They believe the minister's lying to Parliament. I want you to listen to a conversation I had with the DA's spokesperson, but also an MP and a member of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education, Karabo Khakau, about what they take issue with this independent panel from the minister. I cannot believe, once again, we're talking about this minister, and not in a good light. We also speak now to Karabo Khakau, who's a DA MP and a member of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training. The DA is taking the Higher Education Minister to the Ethics Committee for lying to Parliament. Karabo joins us now. As I said, Karabo, you've decided that the minister has to be held accountable, and the pathway towards it is through the Ethics Committee. Talk us through that, and is it about the advisory panel that we now have caught sight of?
Good morning, Tshidi. Thank you so much for having me, and good morning to your 702 listeners. Tshidi, you're correct. It has everything to do with the SETA advisory panel, the selection and evaluation panel that the minister communicated to Parliament that they are the people that advised her on the appointment. You would know that we had 573 applications for the board SETA chairpersons, and out of those 573, the 20 that were appointed were clearly aligned to the ANC, predominantly from KZN, but also aligned to the chairperson, the national chairperson of the ANC, Dr. Mandashe. But it was upon our reflections on those names that we obviously asked that the minister withdrew those names. But we also wanted to know who's this panel. So if you are saying there was a vetting process that went into this process, you must tell us what that vetting process looked like. She then eventually gave us the names of the panels, although she concealed one of them, and we still want to know that one mystery Casper the Ghost, who they are, because essentially they matter. But you would have noted that of the 5 that she's revealed, one is Advocate Mutau, who was supposedly the chairperson of this panel, yet according to the minister, never attended any meeting. which then begs the question, who actually chaired this meeting? But we also know that Advocate Tshidi Madia currently has a 2 million tender that is active within the city of Johannesburg via Loyiso Masuku's office, MMC Masuku's office. You'd also know, Tshidi, that Masuku was appointed as the chairperson of the food bev. So you can't have Tshidi Madia having 2 million rand tender that is currently active. That is one tender amongst other tenders that Terry has with the city of Johannesburg. 2 million under Masuku's office, and then the same Masuku now happened to have been appointed as the food bev chairperson. That's number one. Number two, you have Asisi Posolani. Asisi Posolani is a former SASCO leader, is a former member of the Western Cape Youth League, and is currently serving as an advisor of the Minister of Higher Education. There's no independence there. Number three, you have Nelisi Wesimane, who's currently the Chief of Staff of the Minister in her office. There's no independence there. Number four, Mabuza Ngubane is the Chief Director of SETA Coordination in the Department of Higher Education. The same Mabuza Ngubane in the meeting that we had on the 30th meeting of May lied straight to my face when I asked him what his involvement was in this, in the appointment of these people. And he said he knew absolutely nothing, that he was not involved at all. So that's problem number one. Another problem number four. And there is no independent there. And the last name that the minister reveals is of Rulani Ngwenya, who's currently the Deputy Director General for Corporate Services within the Department of Higher Education and held a DDG position on corporate management in the Department of Tourism before. So essentially our cry here, and the reason why we are taking the minister to the ethics committee, is simply on the basis that you cannot lie to Parliament and say that the process was independent, was fair, that the people who served on the panel have no absolute political connection to your office or the ANC, and then we get this compilation, particularly because it is very easy for us to see that these people were earmarked specifically for the outcome that we saw of the 20 appointed people out of the 573. But we're not stopping just by taking the minister to the ethics committee. We also want a full disclosure of the minutes that these people, of these people's meetings that they had in their consideration of these applications. Moreover, we also want to have a full disclosure of the report that was sent to the NSA, the National Skills Authority, on the final recommendation of these appointees. All of those things must still be able to come to Parliament, and all of these things should be ventilated in the next hour in the committee when it starts.
I know that Advocate Mutau, at least on my end, I've spoken to Advocate Tshidi Madia, who's not ready to speak to us yet. He wants to go deal with the committee itself. But he pretty much said to me, he had communicated that he could not get involved in this particular independent panel. Does that maybe explain to you why it took so long to try and get information about it? Is that there's so many gaps still? I mean, one of the names there, who's somebody who seemed to be credible, who you're now saying is actually also involved with business, linked to people who are appointed to the boards. What does that communicate?
Are you saying that when the minister asked Tshidi Madia to go form part of the panel, Terry said he couldn't do so?
That's my understanding. I think Tshidi Madia will approach, the advocate said to me, he will approach the committee. He had written a letter to say that he could not participate.
Then that makes things worse. Then we want him face to face, like we said, that including everybody else. Face to face, they must come tell us. Because if indeed Tshidi Madia had communicated to the minister that he didn't want to form part of the process and did not, eventually ended up not forming part of the process, then Governor lied again.
Yeah. What does it say about her? What does it say about her?
It means she does not deserve to be sitting in the office that she's sitting in. You cannot have a decision as important as this one that is responsible for how over 19 billion rand of the state's coffers is going to be governed. 19 billion rand that is responsible for the skills and development of young people who depend on those skills and upliftment for job opportunities so that they can eventually have an opportunity to put food on the table for themselves and their families. And you Mickey Mouse yourself through it altogether. Not only a spit in the face of young people of this country, it is a spit on the walls of Parliament, and it is a 100% a spit on the graves of our forebears who fought for us to be able to represent our people. Instead of representing our people well, she's taking us all for a ride. She's not taking her role of office properly. She's certainly not fit for purpose.
All right, thank you.
And this is why we've referred her to the ethics committee, because we can't. And we said as the Democratic Alliance, we warned, do not lie to us. your way you govern must be accountable and it must be transparent. And if not, the poppers shall dance. And today we're saying as the Democratic Alliance, the poppers are dancing.
The poppers are dancing. Karabo Kakao, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me, Tshidi. Bye-bye.
All right. So I had also reached out to MMC Loyiso Masuku, because if you listen to Karabo Kakao, the claims around Advocate Terry Mutau, she connects to the city of Joburg. If you think about it, that original list with the different SETA boards, Loyiso Masuku was appointed to one of those. The MMC says legal is under finance in the city. I would not even know who is appointed for what in my department, as legal services for the city are under the MMC of Finance, because the DA is pretty much claiming conflict for Terry Mutau, who has contracts with the city of Joburg and who's chair of this particular panel that would have overseen the appointments of boards, and that's how the MMC's name comes into play. So I thank her for that clarity. I'm interested in getting more around Advocate Terry Mutau. As I said, I spoke to him earlier. He's hopefully going to come on once he's dealt with the committee. He did say he wants to deal with that issue, but he spoke to me about having written a letter to the minister, which pretty much suggested that he was unavailable to participate. So why would you then say that this person is still chair? Why would you then still expect him to participate? How are you then constituting these particular meetings and having this panel do its work when the chair is not there? And the chair's written to you supposedly saying, I can't do this. What is the excuse that you use? Because then it sounds like you're dragging us into yet another lie, doesn't it? I'm waiting to see how the Advocate Terry Mutau bit unfolds. Because either way, the conflict with the city of Joburg arises. Whether or not he's saying she's telling the truth or not becomes another factor. As the DA says, the poppy is dancing. Hear your voice notes on this matter.
Hi, Tshidi. The rot that's inside ANC, it's like everybody's allowed to do anything that they want because everybody has a closet in their skeleton. So everybody gets to get away with anything. That minister, nothing is going to happen to her. I saw her the other day, last week, with the president in the same room. I don't know what they were doing. They were sitting right close to each other, as if like nothing happened the previous week at the parliament. Like, as if like it's all Rosie and Daisy. So nothing is going to happen. As long as nothing happened to the president, so then therefore all of the other ministers are going to take advantage of that situation because they've got dibs on him. So he's got dibs on everyone. Everyone's got dibs on everyone. So it's just a whole big mess.
Thank you so much for that. You know, I mean, I don't expect the president to be like, hey, stay away, get away from me. I don't expect that. I do expect him to be cordial. But you must remember, a lot of the statements and the U-turns that the minister's done and said, hey, it's stakeholders. It's not stakeholders. It was our boss. It was the president. The president was unhappy. That's why he's also come out saying he wants a report on ABCDE. I wonder what he says now. Because the conversation of a reshuffle definitely enters the chat. In fact, it should have a long time ago. I also hate the idea of everybody in the ANC being painted with the same light. I don't believe that everybody there is rotten. I don't think that's a fair assumption, but there's a question for me of consequence management, isn't it? That's a factor for me around many issues. We don't see it, and we don't see it being handled with the urgency it requires and being decisive. And those are parts and parcels of the problems. For me, when I always see those lists and the back and forth, I just see 2027. It's a succession battle that is playing itself out in her department, and she's allowed for it. The people that are appointed, that's part of the succession battle. The proxy, right? The patronage networks have moved on to boards, if you're paying attention, because GNU's made those parameters a little bit more difficult in government. So the playing field are these board appointments. That's what we must be looking at as South Africans. I've got Tabiso in Polokwane. Hi.
Hi. Is it really? I would at some point have understood why Advocate Mutau would have not participated, because there is no any legal basis to have an advisory committee to appoint chairperson of the board. I can assure you that even if they were so-called independent individuals, because they still know. And I was listening to your interview now currently with your DA member of parliament. Yes. You can realize that there is no one in this particular country that any political opposition or any other opposition that is actually different to the one that has to appoint will actually say these ones are independent. I mean, for an example, let me give you just a small example. The president has just announced eminent individuals. What did people say? Hey, these ones are ANC linked and all of that and all of this. But you see, the most important issue that we need to be able to debate on this particular matter is that who takes accountability on the appointment of the chairpersons of boards. If the parliament says, okay, it's fine, there must be an independent, therefore they need to amend the legislation. That's their role. That's where they should play and say, legislation needs to be amended so that chairpersons of the board of SETAs are appointed by an advisory panel that advises the minister. Here the minister decided on her own without any legal basis. So what do you do when you do not have any legal basis that support you to be able to do something, and it happens in this particular? Unfortunately, she just happened to have mentioned it in Parliament, and when mentioned it in Parliament, the answer was that can we have those particular names? Because it's just actually fishing everywhere, and that's happened on this particular committee. In many other appointments, how many board chairpersons have been appointed? Not necessarily on this one of higher education. Many. I mean, you can go to TIC.
I'm not a legal expert, so I'm not going to weigh in on that. But I'll weigh in on a minister who's then not able to be held accountable in Parliament, who lies, obfuscates, and that's part of the issue. What the DA is taking on with the ethics committee is that she lied. She lied about the panel's appointment. It's not about, hey, it's on the basis of failing to be open and transparent. Is that not an ethical issue? Is that not something we should expect from our leaders? Even if the legal, I can't argue the legal aspects. I'm not an expert. I have to ask that question.
I agree with you on that particular one. Perhaps maybe you must get someone who understands the legal basis to be able to
ask for help. I always ask for help.
That is what is important. So that as and when we debate whether she lied in Parliament or not, we are able to say what would have made her to say the word what you have said.
That's got nothing to do with the legal basis. I've got to go though. Thank you so much. It's not an issue of lying cannot be made. We can't excuse you lying in Parliament because anyway, of a legal basis. I don't agree with that. The issue of getting legal help, absolutely. Legal clarity, absolutely. But it still doesn't excuse how she's handled herself, right? She could have actually sought the legal advice. I'm running very late for news. I apologize.